The fight for foreclosure fairness really does rage on now. This is a war, folks, and in a war we're going to have battles that are won and battles that are lost. But the thing I want to emphasize today, that what this foreclosure fiasco represents is a crisis in confidence in our courts. Consumers all across the state of Florida that have been involved in the foreclosure process have been reporting on the unfairness and abuses that occur in our courtrooms. Now that the popular press has picked up on these issues, the general public is aware of these issues. The general public are frustrated by foreclosures even if they're not in it, because they're seeing the damage that's being done to their neighborhoods. Yes, they're seeing property values decline. Yes, they're upset that consumers are living in homes and they're not making mortgage payments. But they're also becoming aware of the wanton, widespread abuses that are occurring by the lenders and their attorneys all across the state of Florida, and they're starting to understand the more broad implications of all of this. The fact of the matter is that our courts have been ill-equipped to deal with this crisis, and into this void have stepped the banks, the institutions, and their lawyers. We need to keep in mind that these entities, the banks, the institutions, and their lawyers in the subprime industry are what brought this country to the brink of financial Armageddon. And now the practices that they used in Wall Street that created all this mess have migrated into courtrooms. It was allowed to go on for far too long, and that's a disappointment. That's a shame, because the consequences for this are going to be broad and far-reaching. Here are part of the issues. For months now, my office has been arguing against the use of the affidavits that we see in courtrooms all across this country. I think that Mike Fuino, a young lawyer in this office, was one of the first ones that ever brought this issue to my attention, and that we were one of the first ones to begin briefing the court on it. It's a very simple issue. The rules of civil procedure apply in these cases, require that the books and records referred to in affidavits be attached to those affidavits in order for them to be admissible in court. And yet, in the vast majority of foreclosure cases, the books and records are not attached to there. Have a look at Florida Rule of Civil Procedure 1.510. It's right there in black and white. If you submit an affidavit in a case, the books and records shall be attached to that affidavit. In almost all foreclosure cases, these are never ever attached. Now, I believe that if this rule were applied in foreclosure cases and had been from the beginning, we would not be dealing with the magnitude of the Jeffrey Stefan crisis that's playing out in our courtrooms even now and will continue to play out. The reason why this is so significant is Stefan was just one robo-signer, but we know from being involved in these foreclosure cases that there are probably hundreds of robo-signers who are signing hundreds of thousands of robo-signed affidavits all across the country. Again, had the court enforced the rules on affidavits and hearsay evidence from the beginning, the magnitude of this crisis would not be nearly as severe. I've heard it explained that these are mere technical violations, but the fact of the matter is that the rules of civil procedure are technical in nature. We're lawyers. That's what we live by as rules. But it's important to understand that these rules of civil procedure were put in place to help to ensure fairness, to help to ensure honesty and integrity of the system. The reason why Florida Rule of Civil Procedure 1.510 states that the books and records referred to in an affidavit shall or must be attached, and they must be certified or sworn copies of the books and records, is we want a second piece of supporting information to support what's being said in the affidavit. That's the key fact here with these developments. There was no supporting information, and that allowed this process to spiral out of control. The disappointment, in my view, is that our judiciary didn't step in and put a stop to this a long time ago, and the lawyers didn't step in and put a stop to this long ago. It took the industry, and frankly an outside industry, the title industry, stepping in and saying, you know what, we've got such problems with what we see occurring in these courtrooms with these affidavits, and we fear liability based on this, that we're not going to allow this to go forward. So it's again a very real disappointment. Speaking of disappointments, we had a disappointment with regard to the order down in Palm Beach County quashing the Attorney General's subpoena in the foreclosure mill investigation. You know, this is a disappointment. It's a bit of a setback, but it's not the end of the day. This can't be allowed to stand. I think it's a political decision. I think it's a grossly improper legal decision. And whether that's appealed or whether the Attorney General circles their wagons and visits their complaint and what they're investigating and reapproaches this from a different perspective, citing different legal avenues, really doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that the conduct that's being investigated by the Attorney General is severe, it is serious, and members of the public and the press are widely aware of all of these problems. The investigations will continue, whether it's the Attorney General or at the federal level. It really doesn't matter, but I think in order to ensure the legitimacy, the authority of the Attorney General and their investigative powers, that investigation needs to continue. We cannot allow these foreclosure mills to bully the Attorney General, and in fact, that's what's happened here, folks. You know, these mills have gotten used to bullying consumers, and they bullied and abused hundreds of thousands of consumers across the state of Florida. The arrogance is astonishing, and they've taken to going into courtrooms now and bullying the Attorney General of the state of Florida. But this cannot be allowed to continue, and I have great confidence that will not be allowed to continue. But we need you, the members of the general public, to stand up and continue with this fight. A second disappointment was that the Florida Supreme Court issued a letter to our Congressman Grayson indicating that they were not going to take any action against the foreclosure mills. And, you know, that's a level of disappointment that is profound and severe as well. The Supreme Court as well pointed to the Florida Bar and suggested that they should be making investigations in these cases. Well, I have dim hope that the Florida Bar is going to do all that's required to reinstill confidence in our court system among the members of the public. One of the things that's been so disappointing to me about this entire crisis is I have viewed the foreclosure crisis as a tremendous opportunity for the Florida Bar and for lawyers in general to step up and to show the members of the larger public what being a lawyer is all about. Being a lawyer is about protecting the integrity of our court systems, to protecting consumers, supporting consumers. I recently had a young lawyer sworn in, and the local judge that swore that lawyer in very carefully, very specifically and directly read the oath of admission of the Florida Bar. And it was a good opportunity for myself, older lawyers, particularly the courtroom full of older, seasoned lawyers, to listen to that oath of admission to the Florida Bar very carefully. And I think as lawyers, we all need to take a step back and read that oath. Try and do it every day, but do it again and remind yourselves what it is we're doing and the grave responsibilities that as lawyers we have, not just to our clients, but to the entire court system. And so with that in mind, I want to send a message out here to Mayanne Downs, the new president of the Florida Bar, and the Florida Bar in general. Florida Bar has an opportunity here. We're calling on the Florida Bar to step up, to step into this debate, to take a leadership role, to show not just the citizens of the state of Florida, but to show our judges, to show the out-of-state folks, the reporters, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, that the Florida Bar is serious about what's happening here. Let's use this as an opportunity to gain back some respect for lawyers that have been lost throughout this process. I'm going to attach to this blog contact information for members of the Florida Bar. And I'm going to encourage you consumers out there to share with these members of the Florida Bar your stories. Please be respectful. Please be succinct. Share with them your stories. I think you're going to get a lot more impact if the stories that you share, the kind that you share with me on a regular basis, of the abuses that you see occurring. If you have documents that clearly describe what these abuses are, some of the fraudulent documents with bad signatures on them, some of the other affidavits that are problematic, share with them as well. Let's share with them some of this bad service of process. That's another huge issue that's going to lead to millions of dollars worth of claims and damages, because we do know that in a high percentage of these foreclosure cases, constructive service is used. The process servers are swearing to the court that they are not able to locate the defendants in these foreclosure cases, and I believe that in a vast number of those cases, that's just flat out incorrect. One of the things that the Florida Bar members that I'm going to post here will understand is that judgments that do not have proper service on them are void. And one of the things that we're going to be dealing with for months and years to come are void judgments because of this improper service of process. So let's reach out to the members of the Florida Bar. Share with them your examples of the bad service. Ask them in respectful and polite ways, firm but polite ways, to take action and investigate in these complaints. This fight continues, folks. I want you to continue to communicate with members of Congress, your elected members. I frankly have given up a lot of hope in our elected officials. But I do believe that one of the institutions that can provide us the greatest hope for some kind of equity and fairness in foreclosure is our press. Continue to share your stories with the press. Meet with them on a local basis. Call up your newspapers. Ask for your real estate reporter. Sit down with them. Talk with them. Open up those lines of communication. I think this is a story that is still underreported. Our reporters are searching out ways to make it real and to make it valuable to members of the wider reading public. But they rely on you, so open up to them and get out and make those contacts. Keep up the good fight, everyone. Keep sharing your stories. Keep following these stories. And know that at the end of the day, I have confidence together we'll be able to work these problems out and, again, restore fairness in foreclosure in courtrooms all across this country.